All right. Okay. Welcome to this latest session of App Hacks. I think we're going to give folks just a minute or two as they join. So they'll be coming in here in just a second. Um, I'll probably do. We'll probably introduce ourselves like maybe 3 or 4 times,
Sure.
just so people get it. But if you're here joining us,
Tutorial.
my name is Matt Brown. I work with the product marketing team here at Skuid. I've served a lot of roles at Skuid, and I might hold the record for lateral moves. But that's kind of in the DNA of low code application building in Salesforce and in Skuid. And that's why we're talking about what it is like to have a career and change your career with these technologies. So for today's session, we're being joined by Kristi Campbell from Cirrus Insight. Many times Salesforce MVP. Welcome, Kristi. Thank you for joining us today.
Yay! Thanks for having me. I also have had jumped a few roles, more at different companies than at the uh, same place, but I'm excited to be here with you.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're just joining us for these, yeah, we've got this AppHack series. There's a number that are already online if you want to go look at them. Basically, if you're a Salesforce admin, a developer, architect, or responsible for building apps at your company, this is the series for you. The seas of business app dev and design, they can be rough to sail alone. We've teamed up with our friends in the Salesforce world to help you find smooth waters. So join us on YouTube Live each month as we interview MVPs, champions, and admins. We're going to talk about the latest tech trends, app building, design tips, and so much more, and plenty of nautical metaphors.
I love a good pun.
Yeah, right. We are crazy about them. I've got a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, another one on the way. So I'm just like dad jokes 24/7, 365.
Okay, we've been warned.
For me, absolutely. The nautical jokes come because this series is coming to you from Skuid. That's SKUID, stands for Scalable Kit for User Interface Design. We're the number one toolkit to accelerate Salesforce custom app design, development, and adoption with little to no code. So in this world, admins, devs, architects, you're always strapped for resources. You're always strapped for time. You're looking for those tools that are going to help you hit those deadlines and also just change the status quo for how quickly you can react, the pace of change for your organization. So we are all about that and dive in. Kristi, you've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for a while. You've got a pretty big Salesforce resume. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and where you're at in the ecosystem today?
Yeah, for sure. I started as an accidental admin, #accidental admin, really just like questioning processes as a support rep. And they were like, no, you're an admin. And so that kind of, which you can do at a 50-person company, kind of, that really has evolved over the years. I've been a consultant. I've been worked at a partner. This is my second partner. An end customer with working with communities and, traditional sales. And I started in support. So I've really touched a lot of the little bits, and I definitely found my heart place with Salesforce. And now I got, I spy the clouds and the lightning things out in the world. So I like to represent and enjoy my ohana.
Yeah, that accidental admin journey, you start to care about something, and then the next thing you know, you're the expert on it because you spent 2 hours going in and digging in. So I'm curious, what was there an aha moment for you when you were on that accidental journey where you were like, oh, I can do this, I can do these kinds of things?
Yeah, I definitely think that there was moments of, like I say, I started and it was kind of like, this process is stupid. Like, why are we doing the same thing for these two things? And so, and I really noticed I started looking at things that we were doing through that lens, right? Like, why is this spreadsheet? Why are we using this spreadsheet? What do we do? What are we using this for? Right? Like, and I saw my boss having to get reports together every month, quarter, whatever to be, and kind of was like, what data do you need and where is it coming from and how can we make it that way? And I think there started to be a shift. I ended up in kind of a hybrid role that I was doing like SE demo kind of stuff and the Salesforce piece. And I built a whole object to track all that structure so I could actually report on what I was doing,
Yep.
like unsolicited, and I kind of realized I liked that part more than the actual job part. So yeah, so slowly I made it into full on actually having admin in my title and doing it.
That's great. Yeah, I one of the things that we talk a lot about at Skuid is design. We love design, design thinking, human-centered design. And one of the things that I've seen more and more is folks who get away from the technology discussion and just start to think in terms of problems that you're solving. So everything that you just said, you were talking about human problems, things that people were trying to do. Do you feel like, I don't know, are you able to get out of the technical weeds and get into just solving problems with people? What does that look like for you?
I do think you have to be kind of intentional about it. I think it can be easy to like, oh, this is the way it should work, right? I've defined this process. This is what you should do. But I definitely think Mike Gerholt coined the term Sabwa, Salesforce admin by walking around. And I think that's a very true thing, right? Like you meet with people, you see them, and they find all kinds of different ways that are maybe not as efficient or maybe better, or maybe you just need to account for, right? So I think it's important to look at yourself as a user and really talk to your users. And honestly, I think to talk to other people out in the world, right? So there's so much that, we're not reinventing wheels here. There's a lot of course, processes are different, but the gist of these concepts, I think, can be more universal. So I think, talking to people outside your company, seeing other people's orgs, can kind of really spark ideas to how to make your users' life easier.
Yeah, you're like a chief empathy officer.
There you go.
Basically. Yeah, and
you can hashtag left and right.
Yeah, so you're talking about opening up the aperture, walking around, seeing what people are doing, and a huge way that happens in the Salesforce ecosystem is with Salesforce events. Obviously, Dreamforce, Trailhead DX. There's the Dreamin events, and this is a big part of your life. So
yeah,
what are you doing right now in the events? Salesforce.
Well, I'm actually about to leave for Florida Dreamin, and surprise, I'm actually going to present on Friday, so that's fun. I'm just going to be talking all week this week, but it's funny.
Hold on, what are you going to be talking about?
It's basically about giving authentically in the community. So how if you want to contribute, right? There's a lot of people, there's a lot of noise, and figuring out kind of where you fit in, and I think where you can give in a way that's authentic to you, right? I tried to start a blog. I'm ADHD, so getting on some kind of schedule didn't really work. And it just that didn't end up being the way for me. I could talk to a chair for half an hour, right? So user groups are a great thing for me, right? And I started Salesforce Saturday in Charlotte because I will go on my weekend and help people and meet people. And that's kind of where I thrive, right? So kind of finding, and that's actually how I ended up founding Southeast Dreamin in Atlanta. This will be our 5th year with the COVID extension there, but our 5th time happening this year. So we do that in Atlanta, but it's basically like a super user group event, right? Because you said, you've got Dreamforce, you've got Trailhead X, but that's like the Salesforce run piece. And, so some of it is the Dog and Pony Show, right? So I personally think of the Dreamin events a little bit. They're community-led by volunteers, just the nerds of the nerds that are, I actually studied hospitality management. So it kind of was a fit to be talking about Salesforce and hospitality, and just getting together and, like I said, they're all volunteer speakers from the community, and you can meet sponsors and just, I don't know, get out there and get to talking to people about what you're doing and get ideas for the next thing you might want to do. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think one of the things that we learned at Skuid, working in the Salesforce world, is there's just nothing as powerful as sharing what you learn with others. We found that
yeah, it's great to send folks to conferences. It's critical. It helps them build their skills. They're more valuable to the business and the community. But you don't want it to end there, and you want it to actually blossom and ripple out. And so we learned that it was great to be able to follow up from that and build a regular cadence of like sharing what we're learning, what we're coming up against. Because if you go have a real, if you spend all day trying to figure out how to do this thing or that thing, but then you share that, you can make someone's life a lot easier. And when they do it, maybe it takes them 10 minutes because they don't have to go through that.
Right. Well, and I think it's a really interesting point about, I think it's easy to look at experts, right, who've been doing this for, over a decade, kind of stuff. But there's things about, I haven't been in Experience Cloud in a while, right? I haven't used Knowledge in a while. I don't use CPQ, right? So nobody's an expert in all of it. And you may have just discovered something that like could be helpful to someone. You don't have to be here to make an impact on someone, because it's like the funnel, right? You've got a lot of brand new admins at the top. So for them, any incremental piece of knowledge that you can share really might be helpful to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, when it comes to finding that thing that is really interesting to you, because, as we've talked to folks in these series, one of the things that's just come up is if you're wanting to build your career here, it's not enough just to get the admin cert. You need to build on that. You need to figure out where you want to go. What are you going to dive deep into? And part of that means being exposed to a lot of different things that are going on to see, what grabs you and pulls you in.
Right.
What was that for you?
Well, like I say, I think optimization was really the piece, but it's really interesting to see. I mentioned I'm the accidental admin, right? And I think now there's a lot more intentional admins that are trying to break in. And like you say, just getting the cert isn't enough. I think it's interesting to look at things in your life with the lens of Salesforce, right? Like, looking at whether you have an admin job or not, looking at stuff in your job and how would you do it and build it. I have a nerdy, I looked at, of course I just dropped it on the ground. Like mapping out, tracking our groceries between like what we have. And then when something's running out, to have it build a grocery list that then, and also to maybe start tracking like which store I should go to. Cause I vaguely have it in my head that I go to like the fancy expensive store. Maybe I don't need to, but maybe the difference is like $2. So mapping out how to track that and building it and learning stuff just to then inform your day-to-day. And especially if you're looking for a job, right? If you've got a dev org and you've built out something, somebody built like a baby diaper changing app, right? Things like that are like, I've thought about like tracking all the plot lines of the show This Is Us and like episodes and phases per character, right? Like that's architect. Like, how would you architect that? And then if you can show that to somebody, that's more than just like, to your point, I passed a cert test, right?
I think I've heard of folks running Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and
of
all of their characters and like places and stuff in a Salesforce instance, which is just kind of nuts. But yeah, I think I also think I remember a while back, years ago, someone did on the Salesforce like floor, there was like the Minecraft visualization of like Salesforce data model. But yeah, you're right. It once you start to see how quickly you can build something, then you start to get ideas, and then that's where the creativity. And one thing we were talking about before was creating that space for creativity and curiosity. So I'm curious, what does that look like in your career to create that space to find those things that click?
Yeah, I definitely struggle with this as well, right? As much as I say, carving out the time to watch the webinar live and not tell yourself you're going to watch the recording and then not, right?
No, I swear I will.
But right, I can see that it's tough sometimes to be like, I have a ticket due for this sprint, right? I have this X thing, so I shouldn't go to the user group, right? or I shouldn't ask to go to this conference, whatever it might be. But I definitely think there honestly have been times where I've been somewhere, talked to somebody about something, and like literally the next day, my boss is like, "Oh, we got this requirement to do blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, I do know you can do that. Like, I know someone I can ask. And it really just helps broaden your scope so that you can, obviously, again, you can't know everything, right? But in the moment when somebody's saying, is it possible to do this with Salesforce, after you give your like tongue in cheek, everything's possible with Salesforce, but you can, kind of relate to, oh, I saw this example. Let me try it in a sandbox, right? Let me, I've seen something similar, right? I think that just resonates a little bit better or different than like, I'll go Google it for you, which is also what you'll do probably.
No, a friend recently told me that, one of the things that they look for in folks as an indicator of them succeeding is pattern recognition. So can you see how this thing that you have relates to this over here? And, to that end, whether you're supporting Sales Cloud or Service Cloud or Experience Cloud or something like that, innovation happens when you get exposed to what someone's doing over here and you realize, oh, wait a second, what if we did that over here? And
I think a good example of that is at my last job, we really we did have to develop custom apps, right? But we really tried to build in admin toggles so that we didn't, every time we needed to make a change, right? We know this limit is going to change periodically. So let's build for that. Like, let's think about that. I think that's really next level thinking, right? Like I think traditional intro admin, right? Yes, you're building users, you're creating fields and page layouts. But to your point, I think opening the aperture, right, of looking at who's going to fill this out? Where does this data come from? Am I already doing something similar? Like just asking those questions and looking at the holistic piece of how things might need to relate. It's not just as simple as, sure, I'll make you a field because you want a checkbox that's no one's ever going to check.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's how you're going to create value for whatever organization that you're in. Are you actually like creating systems and cycles that will build and iterate over time? Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So back to events. What do you have any thoughts on or tips on how to make the most out of going to events, especially post-COVID? I'm curious, what are your thoughts as we?
Yeah, this is the first one.
Yeah.
In live, and I did have a user group meeting. So I've at least gotten back into, having to wear pants and talk to people. For me, I think the key, again, is really looking at sessions that relate to what you're currently doing, for sure, but also some kind of reach sessions. I've certainly sat in developer sessions where it's mostly over my head, but it's good to know, right? So that if I have to communicate to a developer, right, I can kind of learn those things. I definitely, I'm biased because I know that the Dreamin events, again, volunteer-led, run by the community, they're dependent on sponsors. So yes, of course, it's now that I work for a partner, it's like, be sure to come to the partner expo. But, I definitely think there's value in maybe you don't need a product today, but understanding what options you have, right? There's multiple vendors that do certain things, right? So making those connections and getting that familiarity with partners, I think, can be really helpful. And then really just trying to meet new people. I know it's hard. Not everyone is us, right? That is just, well, be like, hi, walk up to you randomly and be like, hi, you're sitting alone. Can I talk to you? But I've got, the great thing about Salesforce to me is you've got, even here in Charlotte, we've got a bunch of nonprofit people. We've got consultants. We've got Bank of America down to, we've got these huge companies, but also small companies and across all kinds of industries. So, but we all are building formulas, right? We're all building flows now instead of process builders. We're using the same tools. So there's a lot you can learn, even if somebody isn't in directly the same industry as you, which is Yeah, you can say a great way to just like introduce yourself to the person you're sitting next to and see how they fit into the world and um, how whether or not it might actually be what you need right now. I think is still really important to get that exposure to people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's something I've thought about, you know, for whatever reason right now, things are fairly fast paced. And I see an email come in about this product or that product. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely don't have time right now to look at that. I think, oh, you know what? It would have been good if maybe 6 months ago I had a chance to look at that. But maybe that's the thing. I see that now, and 6 months from now, when I think about, oh, hey, we're actually going to need to go here, I can think about that. So yeah, taking time, proactively finding those things, because you don't know when that's going to pay off further on down. I also really like what you said about finding voices kind of outside your immediate bubble. I know one thing that we've seen is, I work a lot with enterprise customers, and they often have a lot of processes, very large teams. But then you go talk to a scrappy nonprofit who, you got a Salesforce admin, and they've got to wear like 10 different hats.
Right.
And they're innovating because they have to, and so they're going and they're finding this stuff out, and it's like, oh my gosh, you went and you vetted all these different things, and now I want to learn from that, and we'll find out how we can do it in a more process oriented organization. But those are the pioneers. They're going out and they're finding new
Well,
ways.
and there's not just one way to do things, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes just seeing, I saw something recently of somebody that was using screen flows to help people like avoid validation role type of things, right? So again, I don't think I don't think about screen flows as much, and except for like kind of call center guided processes, but really, if before you close an opportunity, you need to do these 5 things.
Oh yeah.
I could have a validation rule, right? And like, but I don't know about you. I've definitely had someone ask me a question. I've like sent back the text from the validation rule that they already saw, but it's not in red. And they're like, oh, okay. And they fix it, but
yeah. No,
like,
that's a great example. Yeah.
Cirrus is all about reducing CRM friction, right? Like trying to help, a lot of your salespeople might want to live in email, right? And so with the side panel and syncing your activities, so you're kind of fulfilling what your management needs, but you're still making things easy for your users. Yes. Like that's literally a whole company that came out of this idea, right? Of usability and making things make sense for your team. So, but the way that we do that has certainly evolved, right? So there's always something new to learn. I think of something that somebody thought of, or a different way to use something, right? Like using quick actions when you can't use dynamic pages, forms, components, because they're not on standard objects yet, right? To get little subsets of fields where you need them. Just all kinds of, and again, that goes back to seeing what your users are doing, seeing maybe what they hate.
Well, I love that example of the error message and heading them off at the pass, basically, like using a guided flow so that they don't ever get to that point of friction and they're wondering why it didn't work. And that's one of those places where I think, being exposed to other builders, other admins, and partners, you can get to a place where you're being proactive as opposed to reactive.
Right. Definitely.
You can go look for those ways to improve it so that people don't ever hit that point, which feels very different, I think, maybe from what it would have looked like to be an admin a while back. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how has it changed? What does it look like, years on, even compared to like 2 years ago, in terms of what it looks like to build your brand as an admin, as a builder or an architect? What are some big differences that you've seen?
I mean, I passed my first certification before there was Chatter even. So it's been a while. I think there's definitely different approaches, right? Of is a problem coming up that you're trying to solve, and then you're kind of doing a deep dive out in the world to find some options. There's also the like proactive kind of trailhead approach, right? That you're trying to just expose yourself to a lot of things. If anything, I think it's helped open up the fact of, you mentioned those scrappy startups, right? That you kind of do need multiple people potentially, or opening up the idea of, dedicated teams, because, there's the things I need to do, the things I want to do, right? And and some of those things I want to do, my boss doesn't even know about yet, right? Like they're just this list in my head of like, wouldn't it be nice if kind of things. So I think depending on if you come into an org that has structure, right, of building in time for polish and time for tech debt addressing and like those kinds of things, or even honestly a scheduled release cadence, right? That's a whole different, right? Versus just kind of willy-nilly making updates.
I'm just going to go make this change in production kind of thing.
Yeah, I do think that getting some kind of like DevOps structure has been more recent prevalent in terms of actually like
for sure
tracking and history and getting into deployment schedules, which is a really good structure for someone, again, ADD like me, that wants to just go do the things.
I totally feel that. And I'll say too, Skuid's whole idea is being able to build a beautiful, functional experience without code. And what's great about that is that it opens it up for a lot of people that know business processes but maybe don't know code to be able to do that. And that's kind of Salesforce's DNA.
Right.
But the challenge that you have there is, if let's say you're a business analyst and you're used to creating reports. Well, if you get your Salesforce admin and you start to build Salesforce things, you're not just building static reports, you're building applications. And applications have releases, and you want applications to have stability. It's not just a PDF or a CSV or something that you're sending out regularly. Yeah, that's a big step up, I think, for folks that are changing their careers that way.
I mean, especially, like I say, I studied hospitality management. So there definitely was a business degree, right? So there definitely was, learning those kinds of concepts was a lift for me, and having to pursue that and meet people, again, that kind of plant those seeds. And then, you go and learn more along the way, and you've got those people as resources, potentially if you want to learn more. So, or follow them on Twitter. There's lots of Salesforce people on Twitter, so you can kind of see what people are thinking about. But
well, where did the time go?
I was gonna say, clearly we could talk all day.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to do more of these. But before we finish up, I am curious, what are you most excited about in these upcoming the Dreamin conference?
I mean, I'm just excited to meet people and literally just sit and talk and have a drink, and like, just like I say, just getting exposure to the different things that people are doing. And fortunately, my boyfriend does at least sort of understand Salesforce, so I can talk about, but it's not quite the same nerd level, so being with my tribe.
I feel that. Well, if anyone's going there, please go to Kristi's session. It sounds like it's going to be awesome. But we'll go ahead and wrap up here real quick. We do have a raffle winner. So let's see here. If you hold on, let me preface this real quick. So
totally forgot to take any questions. So hopefully nobody had any.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in there. That's fine. You can always reach out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Skuid has a community.skuid.com. If you have questions about Skuid, go on there. We'd love to talk. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. And we do these raffles. So if you subscribe to the newsletter, you can get entered into this raffle. We always announce a winner. This AppHack session winner is Evan Roth. Evan, we will reach out to you about getting you a prize. So thank you so much for subscribing. Kristi, thank you for joining us today. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Yeah, best of luck at Dreamin conference. And everyone take care. We'll see you on the next one of these.